Something starts to happen in America during the 1950s. Products begin to change drastically, not because they stopped working, but because simply working was no longer enough. Now they had to compete. They had to be recognized, not for what they did, but for how they looked. And the Mixmaster was about to step into that world. For nearly a century, the Sunbeam Mixmaster has been one of the most recognizable machines in the American kitchen. Millions were made in dozens of models across several decades. Many were wedding gifts. Some came from your grandmother's kitchen. Yours may have come from your mom. But whether your Mixmaster is a flea market find or a fully restored treasure from AuntieNin.com, this series will help you figure out exactly what you have. Because every Mixmaster has a story. After the success of the Model 10, Sunbeam didn't stand still. The Model 11 begins to push things forward, carefully. More color options, a refined presence, a little more attention to how the machine felt in the kitchen. You can see it in the details. The Model 11 introduces something new, round air vents. Now that might not sound like much, but those vents allowed Sunbeam to do something they hadn't been able to do before. Hide the front screws completely. Before this, they couldn't hide it. They designed around it. They tried to blend it in, make it a part of the machine. But now it disappears. It's still there, still doing its job. You just don't see it anymore. And then we get to the Model 12. And this is where things become unmistakable, because the difference between Model 11 and Model 12 isn't really mechanical. It's completely visual, dramatic, and if it feels familiar, it should, because at the same time, Detroit was going through its own transformation. Car makers weren't just building better engines anymore. They were building presence. Tailfins appeared, not because they were needed, but because they looked fast, seemed modern, and felt like the future. So the Mixmaster followed that same idea. A small channel filled with a gold accent. An eyebrow across the front, giving the machine a forward-leading stance. This isn't refinement anymore. This is styling. And none of these changes made the mixer any easier to use. They didn't improve performance, but they changed how it felt, how it looked, how it presented itself in the store and on the counter. And then there's the front, because the first time, Sunbeam removed something that had always been there. The name. That full Sunbeam script is gone, and in its place, a single bold letter. An S, stylized, centered, unmistakable, like something worn on the chest, because by this point, a single letter could carry an identity. And that's why this model gets its nickname, the Superman Mixer. There's a word for this, populux. The idea that luxury should be available to everyone, because by the 1950s, America wasn't just producing anymore, it was prospering. And that prosperity showed up in everyday objects. These were not luxury items, they were everyday items given a luxury upgrade. Color, shine, detail, and presence, because once people could see the future, they could finally unsee the past. Not by throwing everything out, but by being careful about what came next. Because this generation was still shaped by the Depression, still shaped by the war. They knew what it meant to make do. So this wasn't about replacing everything. It was making sure that what came next didn't feel like the past. Millions of new homes were being built. New kitchens, new ideas about how those kitchens should work. And with that, new expectations. Because for the first time, a modern bride may not be completely convinced that she even needed a Mixmaster. Food was changing, new grocery products, new conveniences were making preparation easier than it had ever been before. So the question wasn't automatic. Do I need one? But then she saw Model 12, and suddenly that question didn't matter. because it didn't feel like the past. It felt fast, modern, stylish. And in that moment, it wasn't about whether she needed it. She wanted it. And that moment was bigger than the Mixmaster because it wasn't just Sunbeam. It was happening everywhere. Products were no longer being sold based on how badly you needed them. They were being sold based on how much you wanted them. And once that shift happened, everything changes. Because now it's not about what something does, it's about what it means. In the next episode, we step into the moment when that idea becomes the strategy. When people shaping these products aren't engineers anymore, they're storytellers.